Welcome everyone to Thai Nagpur's Impact Speaker Series Ask Me Anything with Mr. Jayesh Parekh.
Hi everyone. Very good afternoon and good morning everyone. On behalf of Thai Nagpur, I welcome all to this session today. We are using AirMeet for the first time, so please bear with the technical glitches if it appears because we are not accustomed to using it very often. So Thai, like everyone knows, was set up in 1992 to foster entrepreneurship at large, and it was based out at Silicon Valley from a group of people from Indian origin initially, and gradually it grew leaps and bounds, and we had multiple chapters across the globe. The mission is working around the pillars of Thai fostering entrepreneurship. The pillars: mentoring, networking, education, funding, and incubation. So this is with a focus to giving back to the community. The focus is on generating and nurturing the next generation of entrepreneurs. So we have two stalwarts here today with me, Jayesh Parekh and Ramakrishna. So I welcome them to this August gathering, along with our charter members from Nagpur from other chapters, office bearers from other chapters, associate members from Nagpur and other chapters, and other entrepreneurs who are well established, and some are enthusiastic budding. The vision for Thai is by assisting entrepreneurs, we believe we can empower individuals and create wealth in communities. And here is a man, I don't think he needs any introduction, but still I will request Rama first to start with the session. So R. Ramakrishna, I'll give a brief introduction about Rama. Ramakrishnan, Chartered Accountant Ramakrishnan, Rama as we call him, is past President Thai Nagpur. An entrepreneur from his region, started small and could really build a global investment banking business. His presence ranges in 48 countries. The Cross M&A franchise is ranked among the top 10 merger and market and Bloomberg League table. Rama has the knack of stitching the right business model innovation into his ventures. He is co-founder of Exino Capital, Quantum and Co-Resource. Rama, I remember meeting you some 18 years ago, and back then you were building a boutique investment bank with a single city presence, and today you have successfully scaled it up to 48 countries. Not many know this story. If possible, can you share it? And also, if you could share the interesting stuff you are doing in the special situation that is the stress asset space. Over to you, Rama. Welcome to the session.
Hey, good afternoon, Nitin. Good afternoon, Jayesh. Good afternoon, everybody. Nitin, you have been very generous with that introduction. I don't know how much of that I deserve, but way back when I met you, 2000, 2001 kind of time frame, roughly about 18, 19 years back, I remember that conversation even now. Yes, of course, we were very small and we had a single city presence. And what used to happen is when we used to go for this BD meetings, pitch meetings to companies, large companies, call it Tatas, Adanis, GMRs, they would say, hey, look, you are Nagpur based, right? And we've got Goldman Sachs of the world, we've got Merrill Lynch of the world. They compete with very cutting edge quality of services. How are you going to compete with them? How are you going to deliver better services? And when I used to come back home and sit in our drawing board, we used to think, hey, how are we going to make it here? I mean, is it possible to have global audience, global clientele in a non-tech environment, in an environment which is more services driven with some friction out there? So we said we want to work on two themes. The theme number one was how do we get sector focus? So we really got into sectors like energy, infrastructure, which were the core sectors. India was growing very rapidly at the time in these sectors. The second theme was how do we go global in an asset light model? So that was the point, because obviously when you are small, you can't write large checks for employees for office establishments around the world. So we again took a baby step, formed a venture in three more countries, including excluding India. And that was we started a franchise in Tokyo. We started in Singapore, China, and India was one of them. And we were handling India. We grew that into 11 countries, and then again hit a roadblock of capital efficiency. It was a capital guzzler in some way. So we merged that with a London headquartered M&A bank called Global Scope, and we own a good pie of that today. Today it is world's third largest M&A bank. What does it mean? It does M&A deals worth $15 billion annually. It's being rated 10th as per the Bloomberg league table rating, as you rightly said, Nitin. And we are happy we're doing 8th position, 9th position, 10th position, 3rd position. So it's a very interesting journey. Sitting in Nagpur, you can do a lot of cross-border M&A, and they're all back. And believe me, those clients are back to us. We are doing a lot of work for Tatas, for Adanis, and for many other companies. So that's a very interesting journey on the investment banking side. Nitin, you also talked about the special situation. So when this Modi government took over, they embarked on the journey to create something called the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Framework, and they launched this IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. We looked at that opportunity. We said we are very sweetly positioned because it needed two key elements. One is how do you run a sick company, and how do you sell it off to a strategic buyer. So we are currently doing some 20 companies, and we are turning them around. Our management team is at work around the nation, and we are doing some market deals there, and very happy with that position as well. Thank you, Nitin, for that.
Great, Rama. Thanks for the brief introduction and telling us what is in store from an entrepreneur, styled entrepreneur with a new set of ideas, and starting from Central India and going global across the globe, truly global. So I really appreciate the work what you have done and the mentoring what you provide at Nagpur. So this is a series of TM Impact speaker series. We have charter members from Nagpur and we have associate members. So they are free to interact with each other, going on the tables which are in the AirMeet platform. So they can have private meetings as well while the session is on. So Rama, I would request you to start the chat with our guest keynote speaker, starting with his keynote and with your Rama style fireside chat.
Okay. Thank you, Nitin. Hey Jayesh, good afternoon once again and a warm welcome.
Thank you.
Truly, Nitin, thanks for making it a fireside chat. If I were to draw a small trivia for the audience, this fireside chat actually started in 1930s at the Great Depression times. Franklin Roosevelt thought of talking to his constituency in those times of depression, and here we are, back to the COVID times, right? And here we are, ask me anything. We have a legendary keynote speaker. We have a legendary entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, VC, angel, and we'll get to hear that journey. I don't want to spoil by introducing Jay. I don't want to introduce you because obviously this audience out here, an amazing cross-section, entrepreneurs, wannabe entrepreneurs, startups, professionals. We all, including us, including Nitin, we all would like to hear your story. Jay, I mean, if you could briefly tell us, you come from a Gujju family, you grew up here in India, went to US, and came back to build some large businesses in India, like in a startup mode. And you ended up also co-founding a large television company. So tell us that drama, tell us that action in the real Gujju style, right? Over to you,
Thank,
Jay.
thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank Nidhi, the Executive Director of TAI Nagpur. I want to thank Nitin Sachdev, the President of TAI Nagpur, and of course you, Rama, past President of TAI Nagpur. Thanks to all of you who have taken the time this afternoon to join us. I want to instill some hope and optimism in all of you. I came from a very humble beginning, and where I've arrived now over this journey, I just want to tell you that I'm blessed by high levels of dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins, and those are sort of responsible for happiness and motivation. And so, you know, I grew up in a humble beginning in Kolkata, now what it's called. So back then, Calcutta. I went to St. Lawrence High School, got good school education. We had, I mean, just like almost many successful entrepreneurial middle class family background, I had no television at home. I had no car at home. So kind of sort of, middle class or lower middle class family. After my high school, I got into IIT Kharagpur, and I got into metallurgy. So there is a ranking system, and my rank was not good enough to get into my favorite major, which is electrical engineering. I had no clue why I wanted to do electrical engineering, but I got metallurgy in Kharagpur. So at that point in time, I took that. But then later on, I got admission in Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, which is called MS University of Baroda. So I grew up in Calcutta, and I had never lived in Gujarat. And so as a Gujarati, that was a little bit of a fascination for me. And then also, I found out that the ratio of boys to girls in my time, there were 23,000 students in Baroda. 52% were women and 48% were male. And so, at a young age there, I thought, okay, let's take an adventure. So I did not join. My father and mother, of course, were so disappointed because they thought, okay, you join IIT, you're sorted. So anyway, I did not join IIT ultimately. I went to MS University of Baroda for a 5-year, absolutely amazing adventure. After which, yet again, I got into IIM Calcutta, Indian Institute of Management, IIM Calcutta, and IIM Bangalore. And I decided to join IIM Calcutta. I also got admission in Austin, but my father basically said, "Well, here is the deposit for IIM Calcutta. I don't have money to send you to Austin." So I joined IIM Calcutta, and 2 trimesters later, there's a story in terms of how it happened, but at the end of it, I ended up quitting IIM Calcutta after 2 trimesters because I got admission in Austin, and my brother sent me a ticket, and he said, "Listen, you come here, and then we'll figure out what to do." So, like many other immigrants, with $100 in my pocket, I took out first time in my life. I got on a plane and I flew from Calcutta to Austin. In Austin, I ended up doing a MS, a Masters of Science in Electrical Engineering again. From the University of Texas at Austin, and all throughout my education journey and my college journey, I worked to pay the fees and bills. Again, just like many other immigrants, I was a research assistant for Center for Electromechanics, which is doing some compensated pulse power research, and that resulted, the thesis essentially at the end of my graduation resulted in my first job, and that first job was with the Center for Electromechanics. The university hired me, and so they decided to sponsor my green card. So in the back, those good old days, it was quite interesting for a university to sponsor you. So again, happily, I got my green card and I started working for the university. Along that time, Ronald Reagan had a Star Wars defense-oriented projects, and so in the university, my Center for Electromechanics also got a lot of funding from defense, and I did not want to do any defense-oriented projects, and so I asked them if I could sort of move on. And then, of course, they very willingly said, if you don't want to do that kind of work, then I moved to IBM in Houston. And in IBM in Houston, I joined the marketing department. I became a systems engineer. I went through one of the best training that you can possibly get in marketing in IBM. And so in IBM, I worked on the oil industry. My customer was Chevron. And along the way, I also got my US citizenship. So I was on my citizenship number 2. So Rama, keep track of that, and as we go forward. Then I got a call from IBM to say that, hey, we are asking some of these experts in the process industry. So oil is a process industry, to help us start India as a country. There was no IBM in India. back then. In those days, IBM was out of India for about 10 years. And so I said, listen, I've never worked in India, but they said, no, you have to go to a place called Singapore. So back then we didn't know where Singapore was. Now Singapore has become quite famous, but back then I didn't know. But as an expatriate, then we agreed. And so my wife and I, we moved along with our daughter to Singapore in an organization called IBM Offshore Operations. And so that IBM Offshore Operations was sitting in Singapore. We were 4 teams. I led one of those teams, which is the process industry. And we were fairly successful. And then IBM then decided, so my assignment was only for 2 years, but it ended up being about 4.5-year assignment. And along the way, I got invited to become a permanent resident of Singapore. So at that point in time, I was a US citizen, but I took a permanent residence in Singapore. And at the end of those 4.5 years, they asked me to move to Bangalore because IBM did a joint venture with Tata. Back then it was called TISL, some of you might remember. And then that TISL got folded into IBM. And so now India is the largest headcount for IBM. It's even bigger than IBM US in terms of headcount. But we started from zero. And so they asked me to move to Bangalore. I declined. I said, listen, I don't want to live in Bangalore. And then they asked me to move back to Texas. And my wife and I decided that, look, we've come so close to India that we want to not work in USA either. So at the end of 12.5-year journey, I quit IBM. And then I became a forced entrepreneur. So in my family, I'm the first generation who ever worked for my brother and I. We were the first generation who ever worked for a company. My father is a businessman, great-grandfather, everybody. We come from a business lineage, as you can imagine, a Guju Bania. But, at that point, so there was that DNA of business was rearing in me. And so when I became a forced entrepreneur, I was happy to truck on it. The only thing is, of course, I did not realize how expensive Singapore is. So because I was an expatriate, all the bills were going to IBM, right? So my rental bill, my club memberships, everything, transportation, everything was. So of course, when I quit, then we had to make some really tough decisions to pull kids out of international schools. I put them in local schools, and we went through a little rough patch there. But we decided that we are going to try and make Singapore home. So a long story of 9 startups. So after quitting IBM, I did 9 startups. 2 of which were disasters. One of them was a Y2K startup. The whole world thought Y2K was going to be a massive hit, and you're going to make a lot of money. A few people like TCS and back then Satyams of the world and Infosys and Wipro, they made a lot of money, but ours was a complete washout. But then what happened? As happens, SET, Sony Entertainment Television. I got invited to join something called Ace TV, and that's a startup team including my partner from Shemaru. So Shemaru is a video company, Shemaru Infinite Entertainment, as it's called. Famous actor Jackie Shroff. So he's one of my partners. And so we were 7 of us. There's the Magnificent 7, the story. And we started talking about launching a television channel called Ace TV back then. And along came Sony, and Sony did not realize that we were trying to do a television channel. And so they went around scouting for partners in India, and they found a bunch of them. They shortlisted 3. Amongst them, we were one of the 3. And then there is again another long story that happened, a lot of drama that happened. At the end of it, they eliminated one by one. So there was people like Harsh Goenka. They had the CESC cable system and network, and there were the Hindujas. And so there were many of these other players who were there. But at the end of the day, they chose us. We were agile, lean and mean, sort of, go-getters, hungry entrepreneurs. And so we were a group of Indians who partnered with Sony. 4 of us were here in Singapore, 3 of them in India. And that's sort of the Magnificent 7. And at that point in time, it resulted in a joint venture with Sony, which is called Sony Entertainment Television. And I can remember that day on 8th of October, 10th of October, when it started in 1995. And, you push the button and the TV channel starts. And it's a 24/7 TV channel. From that day to today, it has never stopped. 24 hours from that day to today, and sort of perpetually, it is delivering entertainment to now hundreds of millions of people all over the world of South Asian diaspora. And so it started with Sony Entertainment Television. Our joint venture partner was Columbia TriStar, as you know, Sony Pictures Entertainment. And then we added. So from one general entertainment channel, we added. By the way, there's one other thing, which is that I invested all my earnings of IBM. I sold all my IBM stocks. I actually pulled down my 401k. 401k is a retirement program where if you want to withdraw that, you have to pay a penalty to withdraw that. You're not allowed to withdraw till you become 65 years old. But I basically did not have enough money to fund the joint venture. So I basically took this amazing amounts of risk. If you ask me today, two learning lessons. One is, would I have done this today if somebody told me, hey, listen, there is this opportunity and would you like to do this television channel? I'm not so sure, but back then I was young, I was enthusiastic, and then would you invest all your money on that one? Because if this did not work, and I don't think you remember, but there was a BITV, which is Business India TV. There was another TV which the Hindustan Times Group did, which is called Home TV, along with BBC and Pearson and other people. There is Jain TV. So there were a whole bunch of TV channels which actually started and shut down. And so, obviously in hindsight, to throw everything all into one, but that's what entrepreneurship does to you. And I'll talk about that in a bit. So we started from one general entertainment channel. Then we got a movie channel called Max. So people know Set Max. Then there is another Set Max that happened. We did a joint venture with Discovery, which is called One Alliance, which is a distribution network. Sub TV, we bought out Sub TV, that is a comedy channel. We did Sports 6 channel, the music mix channel, Sony Mix. There were some regional channels, there is Max 2 that happened. Then there was a Sony ESPN, a network of channels. All of this happened. Then one of the interesting things we did is that we introduced cricket to our American partners. So most of our board members were not from Japan, but they were actually from LA. So these are American guys who knew baseball. So we took them to cricket matches, trying to encourage them, saying, hey, listen, there is this huge amount of opportunity in this sports channel and cricket. And they sat there and said, hey, listen, every time they're hitting the ball to the bat, they're not running. Like in baseball, hit the ball hits, you have to run, right? So here they are not running. So this is a boring game. But again, over a few beers, we convinced them that, listen, there's a huge potential in that. So finally, they agreed with us to bid on Cricket World Cup. So we bid on the Cricket World Cup. Again, because of Sony Japan, backing, we were able to win that World Cup. So we had 2 World Cups and 3 Champions Trophy, and we really enjoyed it. We traveled, to all these places, including South Africa. And then subsequently, this behemoth called IPL happened. So our then CEO was Kunal Dasgupta, who met Lalit Modi, and it was his idea, and they both cooked it up and then came back to the board and talked about this IPL. And then, of course, this first time, it was a 10-year deal, and I don't know if people know this, but I mean, it's in that number is in billions of dollars, and it's a 10-year. I mean, the Sony guys completely went crazy, and then of course we saw some light in it, saying, listen, we've seen the English Premier League, we see National Football League, we see Major League Baseball, so we really went after them. And at the end of it, then we figured out a structure so that it was 5 + 5 instead of 10 year. We had to take risk only on 5 years, and then the other 5 years we had an option to continue. And we did some good structuring such that they finally agreed. And as you can say, the rest is history. I mean, that probably was the most phenomenal experience that we had for 10 years. Along the way came things like Indian Idol. So American Idol was there, and they said, hey, let's do this Indian Idol. And that was a natural, right? I mean, in Bollywood, in Hindi singing and all of that. Kaun Banega Crorepati, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire came. And we also, did a few major movies also that were produced by Sony Entertainment Television. So in the long run, there were 2 exits that we went through. We went through a couple of exits, and finally in 2013 March, we got a term sheet because we were now getting tired because Sony wanted to keep continuing to invest, and we were basically done. We didn't have any more money to invest in spite of that one exit that we had. And so Sony agreed with us to find a buyer. So we found a buyer, but Sony had what we call a ROFR. So the ROFR is the first right of refusal. So they exercised their first right of refusal on that term sheet, and then based on that, it was a lot easier exit for us because they were in management control. They were the major shareholders, and so as you can tell, the M&A is very difficult. A shareholder, when you have a share purchase agreement with a third party, it's very difficult to agree on exit clauses and things like that. So when Sony exercised that option, we were sort of very happy, and I thought, okay, that's it. You'll live happily ever after. One other thing, Rama, if you're counting, along the way, I got invited to take the Singapore citizenship. So in 2008, I took Singapore citizenship. So I'm now a Singapore citizen. I'm on my 3rd citizenship. And I have an OCI for India. So I'm an overseas citizen of India. So after exiting Sony, I said, okay, you live happily ever after. And I tried to retire. And that lasted for a whole 9 months. So I went to Vipassana meditation to Igatpuri. I went to the Gandhi Ashram and did some seva for a non-profit there. And then I did binge traveling like all entrepreneurs do, right? You have all these binge traveling the places that you want to go to. Met a lot of private bankers. They all chased me, and I was feeling so good. Why they're chasing me? But obviously they're chasing me because I got an exit. And then so I started doing angel investing, and and along the way also I started doing some social impact investing. I joined the Indian Angel Network. I joined Angel List. I joined the Thai Angels. Of course, I became a very active Thai charter member. So I went to ThaiCon, and then I started attending Thai charter member retreats, and I became an INSEAD EIR, which is called Entrepreneur in Residence. I also got invited by Vineet Rai. So I was an investor in Avishkar Fund 1, and in Avishkar India Fund 2, I became an investment committee member. Then they started Avishkar Frontier Fund. These are all impact funds. And now they've started Avishkar Africa Fund. So I'm on 3 of the IC's investment committees of Avishkar. So at the end of that retirement journey of 9 months, I came out and I introduced 2 of my partners, Anurag and Amit, who wanted to do a venture fund. And so I introduced them, and then they invited me. They said, listen, can you also join us as a general partner? I just thought I was going to be a limited partner. I was going to write a check and I was just going to be an investor. But they both came back to me and said, listen, let's all 3 of us do it together. So we started a small fund, Jungle Ventures it was called. It's currently one of the very popular venture capital funds in Southeast Asia, including India. And so we started a first fund. We got 3 exits to, famous exits to Twitter and HomeAway and Rakuten. And so then that small fund suddenly blossomed into a second fund, which is a $100 million fund. So I was a managing partner in Fund 1 and Fund 2. Mr. Ratan Tata is a special advisor to us. Some amazingly famous companies like LiveSpace, Desquera, Credivo, Pomelo, Red Doors, all of this are all in Fund 2. Now we are on Fund 3. I decided that I don't want to take any more board seats. I don't want to be any more IC member, or don't want to do deals. I don't want people to be working for me. I don't want an office anymore. So now they're on Fund 3, and I am been requested. So I continue to stay as a senior advisor. So one of the great things for me is that my photo appears next to Mr. Tata's photo, because he's a special advisor. I'm a senior advisor. So in amazing humility, I'm so proud of that achievement. So third fund is a $240 million fund. And then I'm now currently on several boards and advisor to many organizations, one of which is my favorite, which I'll just speak about a few minutes, and then we can go on to the fireside chat. That is Akhand Jyoti Eye Hospital. So Akhand Jyoti Eye Hospital is a non-profit. It's an NGO, which is based in Mastichak in Bihar. They do last year they did 65,000 cataract operations, and 80% of them are for free. And they have a gender equity program also, which is called Football to Eyeball, where girls from the villages come to play soccer. So the founder is Mrityunjay Tiwari, who played football for a famous Calcutta team called Mohan Bagan. So, he was a soccer player for that. And then when he went back to Bihar after his football, he started this Football to Eyeball program. So these young girls who were in the villages, hinterlands, would come to learn football, and then they would be convinced to join the optometrist or the optician diploma or degree program. And then they would get a full-time job at full salary in the hospital. So that's currently, I'm part of an advisory board of that. I help them with fundraising for Akhand Jyoti Eye Hospital. So everything that I do is all on my website, which is called jayeshparekh.com. So anybody who's interested to look at me, there are two pages there. One is my tech investments, which are startups and venture capital funds. And then there is a impact page, which is all my tech, social enterprise startups and impact funds. So there is where I'm at now. I'm today, spending a lot of time advising, mentoring as many people as possible, and see how I can be of value to anyone. So Rama, over to you.
Wow. I don't have any other word, Jay, except for saying amazing. I mean, look at the breadth of the work that you've done and you're doing. From building a startup in India, I would call IBM a startup in India, because it was a startup at that point in time, building something from the scratch, grounds up, to one of the largest teams in India. You co-founded Sony Television, a bunch of investments, angel investments, VC investments, a lot of philanthropic activity. Jay, I'm so intrigued. Of course, I knew a lot of things about you. We've chatted in the past, but this 15 minutes of my story sort of, made me so very fascinating. I mean, it's a fascinating journey. So tell us, how do you wear these multiple hats? how should we also, in a multitasking world, what is it that we need to do to wear multiple hats? Because we keep talking about focus, laser sharp focus, all of that in building a startup. And here is one thought that's coming out. And you've done television when you did not knew television. I mean, for example.
Yeah.
So how do you do that actually? Tell us something. The secret sauce.
So I think this is sort of one of the things that I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs also, and I talk to my VC friends as well. And there are 2 or 3 things, 4 things essentially I'll talk about. One is that the most important thing that I have cultivated over time is executive decision making. So I was very fortunate to be part of the IBM marketing school, and there they gave us a lot of feedback and a lot of discourses on decision making and conversions. And so, you listen to academics, you listen to corporate advisors, mentors, VCs, and other entrepreneurs, your own team, your customers, and many of these are opposing views. So you have to make a decision out of listening to all of this. And what you do is you develop a 360-degree view. So therein lies the first piece, which is you have a system 1 and a system 2. So if you haven't read Think Fast, Think Slow, you should think of reading that, where system 1 means that's your gut level decision, right? So immediately you jump to your decision, and level 2, system 2 is analysis. So you're doing a lot of analysis and data, and then you come to a decision. And what has been found is that your system 1, your gut level, is right more percentage of the time, over 60-65% of the time, than the analysis 30-35% is right? So I think you cultivate that 360-degree view, and you cultivate how you hone into really very the specific thing. So that's one thing. The second thing that I tell people is that how is it that I am going around and scanning so far and wide, including geographic and vertical, so whether it is social impact investing or nonprofits or advising or venture fund, etc., is because the next generation has to get even better trained than us, because their lifespan is going to be 120 to 150 years, right? Depending on where you are, right? So many parts of the world, it's going to be 150 years. Everything is changing. Medtech is changing, health tech is changing, the whole, genome restructure, all that restructuring, all of that is changing. And so things like CRISPR is coming. So there are things that are going on, which will therefore make you think you should start training yourself to do long-term strategy, long-term planning. You can't say that, okay, let's start a company and we want to sell it in 1 year or 2 years, or let me try and help this Akhand Jyoti Eye Hospital. It's not a 1 year, 2 year thing. He's already doing a fantastic job. Reason I got excited is saying, hey, can I help you scale and grow? His new mandate is that I want to make Bihar blind free, right? So can you imagine? I mean, that's a massive, mandate that he has taken. And then, of course, there are neighboring states and, of course, the country of India. So again, when you start thinking long-term, you make decisions accordingly. So that's the second thing. The third thing is this multitasking, what you're talking about. Today's kids are doing a much better job than us, because we got brainwashed that, multitasking means you can't do anything right. And my sense is all of us are doing this today, what I call continuous partial attention, right? I'm just so honored that the two of you, because you don't have a choice, you're listening to me and looking at me on the screen. But the people who are on this thing, some of them are probably looking at their telephones, and some of them are browsing something and listening, and hopefully getting a little bit here, letting bit there. Very rarely, right? Unless there is a cricket match in which India is playing, right? People like us, we are totally focused, but very rarely otherwise. I tell people that, people are asking me about meditation. So just a little side segue. Multitasking is one extreme and meditation is the other extreme. Multitasking means if you can do multiple things at the same time, and the better you can do, and you can prioritize, saying this is the most important thing. So 60-70% of my hearing and my focus is going to be on this one task, but the other 15-20% I can do something else at the same time, right? I have tried, because my son does it, to watch 2 videos at the same time. I can't do as well as he does, right? So he's got a tablet on one side and he's got his screen on one side. Sometimes he's got his TV also with playing soccer, which is watching some soccer, right? But I'm not able to do as well as him, but I'm saying that is multitasking. Meditation means what? Saying, okay, now can I just focus on one thing and pinpoint, razor sharp? And so people who don't even meditate, right, and are interested, I'll just give you one simple exercise. Pick your most favorite song right? Can be Bollywood, ghazal, whatever you want to do. And from the start, first tune, first tone, you focus only on that music. Close your eyes if you want, and nothing else. And if you drift off, you have to pause and rewind it. 3 minutes. People do meditation for 1 hour, and people have this myth that, oh, people don't think for 1 hour. There's nothing like that. People have mind travels. It doesn't matter even if it's a monk, frankly, with due respect to all the monks. But meditation is that. So if you can focus on a song for 3 minutes, then that's meditation. You can have guided meditation, you can have meditation with music, etc. Somewhere in between lies the answer. So multitasking when it requires, and meditation, sharp focus, razor sharp focus. That's one. That's the third thing. And the fourth other thing that we can sort of go on the next topic, which is, you have to balance the three systems of yours. One is the hearsay. Lots of things you hear. Media channels these days are sending you all kinds of stuff which you don't even know what to believe and what not to believe. Your friends are telling you, your WhatsApp messages in hundreds are coming to me now, almost on a 24-hour basis. So there is hearsay. Second is my personal experience. You can't just deny that, right? My personal experience that I went through with the IBM or Sony, or my friendships or my non-profit world or my spiritual world, my own personal experience on meditation, right? You can't take that. And then my personal belief system. And what is my personal belief system is what I got raised with, right? I was just born in a family. My father was a Jain, mother is a Vaishnava, Swaminarayan. And so my belief system is biased. All of us come with biases. But as you go through life, right, I had this huge privilege to go through Calcutta, Baroda, Austin, Houston. So I was in Texas, and so I got the American value system that got instilled in me. And then I came to Singapore, which is like an amazing country, as many of you know. And so how do you balance this? My personal belief system, the experiences that I have had, and the hearsay, all the things that I'm hearing. How do you balance these things, right? And so this is sort of my advice to entrepreneurs and folks who are listening to this online.
Fabulous, Jay. I mean, I'm sure there's been amazing amount of takeaways that you gave in those 4 bullet points. Jay, diving a little bit deeper, and there's a good bunch of audience who are startups out there. You are an angel and a VC both. Very unique, right? An angel is more betting on the idea, more betting on the team, and the VC is more sort of metric-driven management team, product, so on and so forth. So what are the 3-4 things that you would like to tell us as the checklist for you to write a check? Right?
Yeah, okay. I think so. First piece is, if people are not entrepreneurs and they're professionals and they're thinking of doing entrepreneurship, first thing that I want to mention to you is that entrepreneurship, so there is a quote which is anonymous, I have no idea who said this, but entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't, right? So it's a very famous, the single fun thing which differentiates professionals from entrepreneurs is the risk-taking ability. So I look for that. So and risk-taking ability is not one time. So people say, okay, I quit my job and I became an entrepreneur. That's not the end of risk. Risk is multiple times. So the first time you're out of college, you quit your job, right? So that's taking risk. If you're in college and you quit and then you do it, that's the other is something I called OPM, right? Taking OPM is other people's money. So people just say, what's the big deal? It's a big deal. When you're taking an angel's money, your family, your friend's money, you're making a commitment there. So it's you want to make sure that that money is well preserved and used and utilized properly and returned back to them. And that's really when your joy is, that you really multiplied that money. So I think it's 3 levels of risk. Therefore, the difference between angel investing and VC is that VC, of course, gives you serious growth money, right? So and then of course there's a lot of pressure on exit and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, one thing is there. The risk of failure is something that you have to live with, right? So if you get bogged down by that and you get scared by risk of failure, then you have to worry, and maybe it's not for you. And then you live happily ever after. In the sense, you do your professional job, you're a senior executive somewhere, and it's okay. There are a lot of people who struggle through it, saying the whole world is going startup and I'm getting left out. And there's a FOMO. But I'm saying, hey, change FOMO to a JOMO, right? So FOMO is fear of missing out, JOMO is joy of missing out. So please go to that and just enjoy the rest of your life and don't worry about it. So again, back to angel investing and VC, I will just tell you that there is one common theme for me between those two, and which is who, what, and how, right? Now, after reading Simon Sinek's book, Why, I started asking the fourth question, which is why, right? So who is very obvious. It's leadership. Leadership, I try to suss the person who's sitting in front of me, the founders, and I have 4 levels that I'm trying to figure this guys out. One is smart. Smart means you're intellectually smart, right? So, okay, होशियार लड़का है, IIT से आया है, for example. Signaling, right? That's a signaling. What does IIT mean? Nothing more than IIM. What does it mean? It's signaling. Second is savvy. So he's not only smart, but he or she is savvy. Savvy means the person knows how to sell, right? How to sell themselves, the company, the product, whatever it is. Third piece is shrewd. So it's not that you can just sell, but you know how to negotiate and make sure that either the company or I get my value, right? So that's shrewd. And fourth is cunning. Cunning means, Rama, I don't care whether you make money or not. I'm going to make money, right? So that is sort of cunning. Now, each one of you have to think about where you are. And most likely people are between two. It's not that you're just savvy. You're probably somewhere between savvy and shrewd, right? Some people are between smart and savvy. And the smart people need to move upward. The cunning people need to move downwards, because I do not invest in smart. I do not invest in cunning. Smart people would be smart. Will they give me a 5x, 10x return? Will they be able to grow and scale a company? Probably not. It's those people who are shrewd, ultimately, who end up doing good deals, and they have a 360 business acumen view. And so I think that's something that I look for. And of course, what is very important is, while you're being shrewd, integrity is important, credibility is important, education is important, experience is important, right? All of those are important. So that's the who. The second piece is what. What is this big problem that you're trying to solve? Is this a useful product or service that is innovative and scalable? Because everything is going to get disrupted. So is it disruptive? Now, the higher the disruption, the bigger the risk, but the bigger the returns, right? So I'm trying to suss that out, saying, is this going to be a $30-40 million exit? Or can this be a unicorn, right? Every guy who walks in front of you thinks that person is going to be a unicorn. No, there are many humble entrepreneurs, especially of Indian origin, who don't think that they're starting with something that's going to be $1 billion. They think, okay, I'll be happy if 100 crores is like sort of the maximum limit I can think of. Again, I'm trying to figure out, saying, is this somebody that you can motivate, and will they listen? Will they learn? Will they figure out how to scale it? And if necessary, if it's requiring a pivot. The third thing is how. How is important, which is, will you be able to execute? Right? So you could be a good, fantastic team. You can have all this big problem ideas, but most important place where it actually fails in many cases is because the inability to execute. And so I talk about strategy in 2 ways. One is a deliberate strategy and one is an emerging strategy. So deliberate strategy says that, hey, this is deliberately what I'm out there to do. But emerging strategy is saying, I'm going to keep my mind open. So if an IPL comes along, it's an emerging strategy. So we didn't have cricket. We put it into the deliberate strategy, and then IPL came along, and that emerging strategy then became mainstream strategy, right? So you must have a combination of this. Again, most important thing is, have they done rigorous research? As an angel investor, I'm okay. If they haven't, I tell them, okay, I'll teach you. Let's go and do some rigorous research on the marketplace and everything that's required to build a company and a product, right? And how you're going to sell, how you're going to roll it out. But for the VC, you have to do rigorous research and come to me. You can't say that, oh, I haven't figured out who the competition is. You must have a slide on competition, right? So you must have deep insight into the technology, right? The product market fit. Have you figured that out? Competition I mentioned, and build and manage a strong team. I think that's something which is, I find people who hire extremely well, but they can't fire. And that's not good either, right? I mean, if there is deadwood, there is a problem in your company, you have to be able to fire people. You can't be soft. And then for the most important thing is the ability to grow and scale, right? Do you have that ability to grow and scale? And then as an angel, again, I go soft on it. Whereas of course, on the other side, on the VC side, so the metrics driven VC is the need of the hour. Remember that they are managing other people's money. They are responsible for IRR, right? I'm an angel investor. I'm not responsible to anyone except my family. So I'm just trying to be, a good conduit to make sure that I'm managing my family's money well. So again, very quickly, just 2, 3, 4 bullet points, and then we can go to the next topic, which is that. So the idea is important, right? To innovate and you disrupt. So you're addressing a pain point and the usefulness of the product and service. Strong team, 2, 3 co-founders, right? An angel investor might accept 4 co-founders. VCs will never accept 4, 5, 6 co-founders. It's very difficult, right? Also remember that you have to do 16 things right to succeed, but only one thing wrong and you screw it up, which is you run out of cash. So you run out of money. All this big talk you had, everything runs out because you didn't plan properly. You didn't plan the cash flow. You didn't plan the economics. So execution is at the intersection of technology and economics, right? So business acumen, you must have that. The interpersonal skills, extremely important. So I tell people, you must have good communication skills, both written and spoken, have a pleasant personality. People want to do business with good, smart people, but also pleasant people and good listener, right? I think these are important things. And as a VC, you have to have the knack of becoming investor ready. You present your best foot forward. If my VC, my co-founder is a young lady who can speak well, is much more pleasant in convincing the investor, I can't, even if I'm a CEO, I shouldn't be standing in front of the investor. You let her stand in front of the investor, right? Hopefully people will be much gentler, right? And they'll be willing to listen. They'll say, okay, maybe there is something here. Give you a chance, right? Do everything necessary and possible that will allow you to get a chance, because people get thousands and thousands of deals these days, right? Gone are those days when there were hardly any entrepreneurs. Today, there are thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs, right? So again, focus on things like design thinking and UI UX and things like that. That helps. Like these people who are the VCs are really thinking, looking at your thinking process. Are you doing design thinking and things like that, right? So, and one of the most important thing I talk about is building a solid network, right? So if you're attending conferences and you do Thai networking conferences, you go to ThaiCon, you go to Thai Global Summit, right? So you meet entrepreneurs, but you also meet other VCs and you meet angel investors. Network with higher learning institutes, right? HLIs, you do that. Be active on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all of that stuff. So again, that's sort of a snapshot. The most important thing is why. So the question is, if your why is very strong, you're more likely you get to decide whom you want in your team. So if you're alone and you want a co-founder, but if your why is very strong, you can convince another co-founder to come to you. You want an investor, that investor, if your why is strong, they will come to you. Who do you want as a customer? Again, if your why is very strong, that will come. And your business model. So a lot of people grapple with it. And in my days, it was always you had to buy something for 95 cents and sell it for $1. Well, now people are buying things for $1 and selling it for 95 cents and still succeeding, right? I mean, they're doing massive, but those business models will come through. So yeah, I think we are sort of making sure that we're running out of time. So if you have any few final.
Perfect, Jay. I mean, you've been very simply put, in a very powerful statement in a very simple fashion. I hand it over to Nitin now to take this discussion forward.
Thanks, Jayesh. Very beautifully, you sailed us across the journey, and there were a list of questions with me, and I take 7 questions out of your discussion, so which I wanted to post to you directly, which I received from some of the registrants. So you have answered all those 7 questions. I was just making a note of the things what you answered. So that's really awesome, and it really should be helpful, and it will make an impact on the members present here. And we are also live on Facebook, and we'll be having the recording available on the Thai Nagpur Facebook channel. So I think people can take benefit of your presence and make good use of your time, what you have devoted here. We are really grateful to you. And I see Jayesh, along with being a pro business expert in different domains, you have a different requirement. You have a philanthropist approach, which you devote a lot of time. So one question before going to the topic, which is very near to you, that is your book. So how do you manage between your time schedule? People, usually the startups, they have a question we are short of time. We work for 18, 20 hours, but still we are not able to focus. So how and what drives you?
Yeah. So 2 parts. One is about the social impact and philanthropy. So I'll answer that in a second. But before that, one of the things that is to take away from the end of my book, which I will now throw it and not wait for the conversation on book, is that I live my life, what I figured out from those three things, hearsay, personal belief, and my experience, is that you first practice wealth affluence, right? So you practice wealth affluence because you want to take care of yourself, your family, your long-term retirement, etc. You want to live a good life. Somewhere along the line, you should know how much is enough. And once you know how much is enough, you pause on it, right? And then you go to the next part, which is time affluence. And so the first step, wealth affluence. Second step, time affluence. Time affluence means I do whatever I want to do at my own terms. I meet whoever I want to meet. I participate in these kinds of webinars and it's a very discriminating conversation, but please understand that there is a difference between selfish, self-centric, and selflessness, right? So somewhere in between is where a time affluent person lives. And time affluent person wants to make sure that there is enough time for yourself, but whatever I'm doing for someone, am I adding value? And so the way that I have now started doing that is that I delegate. So if there are some questions that come to me, I send it to my Thai partners, right? I'm in the Thai Singapore committee, and so there are some things that maybe they can do better than I can do. If there is a entrepreneur who comes to me who's at a very early stage, I have a band of angels, right? So I send it to them because it does two things. One is it increases their experiences also, and sometimes they'll come back to me saying, "Hey, you know what? There were one or two difficult things that happened, and then we will do a brainstorming session." But then there are some very interesting things like this thing, and Nidhi chased me down and said, "Hey, we want to do this, and we want to ask me anything with you." No, I got excited, and so I said, "Okay, I agree." Right? So I choose what I want to do, when I want to do, with whom I want to do. So that is time affluence. And the third, then after that, is mind affluence. Right? Mind affluence means, can I create peace and calm and happiness and joy? And that requires things like mindfulness and compassion. It requires things like meditation, things like yoga, things like a spiritual ascent, whatever that means to each one of us. So that's sort of the quick answer to that. The second piece of it, which is social impact, I'd say that every one of us, we should allocate our money. It doesn't matter how much you have. So people say, you know what, I can't do anything for the community because I don't have enough. I'm still working. That's not true. Whatever amount you have, that is how much money you have. So, people also always look at my book's title, which says, "What shall we do with all this money?" And say, "Oh, I don't have that much money." I say, "No, whatever you have, that money. I'm talking about that money." So if you have 100 units, 10,000 units, crores, and tens of crores, because please remember, there is one man who's the inspiration. Even today, after all of this, being in the top 10, he's just past Warren Buffett. But Mr. Mukesh Ambani still doesn't have enough. So do you want to be that? You can keep doing that. Or at some point you decide, you know what, I think I'm good. I'll continue, but I'm good. I don't need to kind of chase it and make money on money. And that's when you start doing allocation. So one piece of my allocation, my personal allocation, is to giving back. And that I've divided into three parts. One is giving, which is non-profit giving. So Akhand Jyoti Eye Hospital, or calamity giving, if there is an earthquake, tsunami, COVID. So as much as I can, I give to that one piece, which is to non-profits. Second is to lending organizations. So I'm close to Milap. So Milap is like a Kiva, right? For people who don't know, that's a micro lending platform, and they also run campaigns. So I do bulk lending to Milap, and they rotate it. They give it to, and I'm very passionate about women entrepreneurship, right? So I make sure that healthcare and women entrepreneurship. So my money goes towards that in lending, and it comes back to me. And you'll be amazed, right? It's like 99.6% repayment. So I get that. It's a low risk, low return, but it cycles. I'm continuing to do good. My money comes back to me, and I cycle it. Third one is impact investing, which is high risk, high return, right? So I invest in startups and venture and impact funds, and that money, some of it goes away, dies. Why? Because while it's doing good, the company dies. But it's doing good and dying, unlike other tech companies where it's trying to do, but nothing happens and money goes away. I'm happy to money for it to go away, but it's good. Some of the money comes back. Trust me, now the thesis is already set, right? So people like Avishkar, and there are many, many other impact funds that have now proved, angel investors who are impact investors have proved that money does come back. And then money comes back, I cycle it back, right? I cycle it back. So there are three, that's how I sort of take my portfolio. So if you look at impact investing is where the intent has to be social impact. It cannot be socially responsible investing. There's a difference between the two. And there is economic, financial first investment, or impact first. Impact first, so there's 0 to 100, right? So you can have complete for profit, 100%, and 0% impact, or you have 100% impact, which is a non-profit. And impact investing is in between. You impact first means you're skewing more towards impact. You take much lesser economic returns, and in my case, I always push people that economics must be right. Impact has to be there, one and two. And so I am a economic first, impact second investor. I've just chosen that because I see more of them succeeding than the ones who are doing impact first. I'm not suggesting that it's not a good idea. I just, my personal, that's the way I do it. So again, you can see on my website, companies are invested like Milap, iCure, Sahas is waste management, change.org, LaborNet, which is out of Bangalore, and then of course Avishkar impact funds. So social impact is a big deal. Again, if Nidhi brings me back one day, I can just spend an hour just having that as a conversation, because I think that the millennial, the next generation, so that's sort of part of segue into the book. We're running out of time, so I'll just quickly let you ask me anything specific you want me to tell you about the book.
The ideation for the book, like how it inspired
Yes.
you, like
Okay.
your journey itself inspires a lot many, but
okay,
how you got inspiration.
So interestingly, what happened is that around me in a place like Singapore, you saw that people made enough money, and then they kept making money on money. So I had a one-liner that I just epiphany that happened to me. You work hard to make money, then you work hard to make money on your money, and then you die. Think about it for a second. Yeah, so many people are living their life that way, and I'm thinking, these people in the middle who are making money on money, can we tell them, A, how much is enough, and two, there is a lot more to life than just making money, right? And so that's inspired me, and that's how I ended up compiling this interview. So I'm not an author, I'm not a writer, I'm not that, but I have a fantastic network. So I said, okay, I know Mr. Ratan Tata, I know Mr. Deepak Chopra, I know Shekhar Kapoor, I know Kunal Shah, I know Sanjeev Bikhchandani, I know so many TIE charter members, Professor Jagdish Sheth. So we got professors and entrepreneurs, and we got people from different sections of the world. So I've got people who are from Africa, UAE, Singapore, India, right, different parts of the world, USA, Dubai. And then I've also got people who are entrepreneurs, businessmen, lawyers, private bankers, professors, social impactors, impact investors, futurists, gurus. But the most important one, Nitin, are the millennials. I had the best conversations with the millennials, and any of you who read the book or will should read the book will probably see why I get excited about millennials, because there's millennials who are going to inherit hundreds of millions of dollars. It's just amazing that we all think that, okay, so what are they going to do? They're going to be all brats. They're going to while away their money. They're going to while away their life, and that's a worry that we have. So I think the generation has changed. I'm a lot older than all of you, but I can tell you that Nidhi's generation, I think they'll make it. Baby boomers were great. They had to do whatever they needed to do. But the next generation, I have full faith in them because they are driven by purpose. I come across so many kids of parents who come to me and say, can you please convince my parents? I want to do a waste management startup. I want to do an agro-tech startup. I want to do an ed-tech startup and fintech, financial inclusion startup. Dad is saying, go work for Citibank. Mom is saying, go to America to do another master's degree course and all of that. Can you please convince them? Can you imagine? Millennials are looking for purpose. And so that really is my audience for this book, right? The audience is these millennials. If I can give them, so many different models are there in my book, as you discuss with all these different people who are charitable trusts, people who are senior members of TIE, for example, TIE charter members, entrepreneurs. Some ideas come to them, right? So my hope is that social impact investing becomes mainstream, where people do angel investing, but in a social enterprise, or they invest in a venture capital fund, which is an impact fund. I think in millennials, when they allocate their money, I want them to think about those things also.
Great, nicely put forward. Yeah, and one small, we are almost well within time, and I think the questions which came directly to Nidhi, she shared with me. So most of them are covered during your talk. Okay. So there's no fun repeating those questions. So I just wanted to have a quick 1 minute advice for startups. Like when they build a startup, they focus too much on pitching and looking for investors. So what is your idea and the advice for these millennials?
Yeah, again, it depends on what kind of a startup you're doing. So this is very funny that, when I talk to the Silicon Valley startups, right, they will just build the product and they'll put it out and they roll it out. And before you know it, they have 1 million users, and then they'll start fundraising. Somehow in India, there is this 15,000 user magic. Everybody who comes to me, not everybody, most of the people who come to me who are just very, with simple ideas. They will have 15,000, 20,000 users, and they say, okay, now we are looking to grow. Or worst is there are people who will spend all of their angel invested money or their family money, and all that money is invested in making the product. Then they come to me saying, okay, sir, we made this fantastic product. Now, can you please give me 1 crore rupees because we want to roll this out? I said, mere paise se nahi hoga ye roll out. You should have thought about that. If whatever money you got, if it is 10 lakh rupees, 20 lakh rupees, 50% of it, 60% of it, you make the product, 30, 40% of it, you go and roll it out. So if you're doing social media marketing on Facebook or however you're rolling it out, you do that. So you spend 500 rupees and you collect data, how much you sold. You spent 5,000 rupees on Facebook, for example, and you sold. You spent 50,000 rupees and now you got data points saying, sir, I did 500, 5,000, 50,000. Now give me 5 lakh rupees. Or you did 5 lakh and you said, now you give me 50 lakhs. See, I can interpolate this data, right? So give me some data points before you come to me. I think that's really the most important thing that millennials can do. Just don't go out running here and there and trying to, because nobody will bite it. I mean, today there are thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs out there chasing investors.
This reminds me of a typical case. I would like to quote the example here. Long back when I was doing consulting in the media business at Delhi, so I used to see people who used to spend a lot of money in setting up the channels, taking the licenses, but they never thought of taking for distribution fees, which was almost 50% of their total investment. So till the time the start of the channel was there, they were out of money, and then the channels crumbled. So since you are from the media, I wanted to share this with you. So
again, I think the last piece is the future areas, right? Very briefly, we run out of time, but look at things outside the box, right? Esports. I mean, esports is so huge, right? And parents, please allow your kids to play esports, right? I mean, that is phenomenal. People who are playing esports and who are watching esports, right, and making business around esports is massive. 380 million annual audience last year. And it's going to grow to 495 million this year. Esports is like $1 billion economy this year, 2.7 billion supposed to be next year, etc. Twitch got sold to Amazon for $1 billion. So many future ideas, future things like blockchain, fintech, right, health tech, edutech, remote work now, especially with this current situation, the cloud, the 5G, autonomous vehicles, right? The one other very important one, which is I'm just keep an eye out, is satellite to mobile connectivity. So satellite to mobile connectivity means that you don't need many of these mobile operators.
Right. Some disruption in the new area, and you're through with your idea.
Correct.
Great. Thank you so much, Jayesh. Ramakrishna, would you like to put something forward, and then we'll sum up the session?
No, I am Jay. I am completely awestruck. Every time I talk to you, every time you come up with something. I mean, here is one person who knows mindfulness, who knows meditation, right? And who has done that, who practices on a daily basis. Someone who has built large companies in a startup mode like IBM. Someone who's built a television company. Someone who's an angel. Someone who's a VC for one of the most wears the hat of a VC in one of the most successful VC firms, Jungle Ventures. Someone who's authored a book. I mean, look at that cross section. Look at the length and the breadth of the work that you have done, Jess. Simply amazing, simply awesome. I mean, I don't have words for that. Thank you for taking out your time on that.
And I want to personally thank each one of you. Rama, thank you so much. Nitin, thank you. And most importantly, Nidhi, thanks for chasing me down. I really enjoyed this session, and thank you for what you did. You're on mute.
And for the attendees, the details about Jayesh work are available on jayeshparekh.com. Anyone who is looking for mentorship or inspiration, he can visit that site. And Jayesh, your 1 hour presence to us is like a 1-year mentorship series sessions for a lot of participants and the future people who would be seeing this session live on Facebook. I really appreciate you giving us this precious time, and thank you so much. And we look forward to hosting you soon again.
Namaste. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jayesh, sir.
Yes, Nidhi, please stop calling me sir, but you'll learn that one of these days.
Sure, next time, sir. Floor is open for the networking session, so the attendees can do the one-on-one networking with each other. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jayesh, sir. Thank you so much, Nitin, sir. Thank you so much, Rama, sir.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks,